Howdy, neighbors! It's Sako Toomey, also known as Castboy, and welcome to our Velociraptor movie review. If you haven't been paying attention thus far, yes, we're doing movie reviews. Horror movie reviews specifically, but this one was a special case. And of course, I am here with
Frankie Mermaid. Why do they call me Frankie Mermaid? Because I'm swimming in bitches. That's
yeah.
Why. Threw me off because she introduced the movie. I was supposed to introduce the movie.
Only sort of. Only sort of.
Natural. So here's the thing. And this is not going to be the same structure as our normal reviews. For the most part, it will be. But listen, this movie is not a typical movie. This is quite possibly the greatest bad movie ever. Like in the best way possible. And I don't know how else to describe Velocipastor, and no, I'm not mispronouncing that. She did not mispronounce that. We said Velocipastor, which is weird because he's actually a priest. But if the name doesn't tell you everything you need to know, you're clearly not paying attention. The movie called Velocipastor is in that same vein as Sharknado, as Lavalantula, as Lamageddon. It's in that bad creature feature category. But so much better in the worst way and so much worse in the best way. Like, I don't know how else to describe this ridiculously, horribly fantastic movie. Do I have my little cheat sheet here? I do.
I wish I had a cheat sheet.
This has nothing to do with the movie. This is how we score it.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So if you're new and have figured it out, we have a star system, and we're going to try really hard to award stars here. But you have to understand this, and I want to say this up front. We can't judge this movie in the same vein as we judged Mousetrap, for example. Mousetrap took itself seriously, right? And there was nothing in Mousetrap that made me feel like they were trying to make a bad movie on purpose. I feel like they just failed at making a good movie. So that lens alters how I see the movie. Since I know that they made a bad movie intentionally, that is going to skew my lens. And so it's going to be really, really hard to score this like we normally do.
I don't know. I feel like it's going to score high.
If you're okay, you can't score Scream and Scary Movie the same way.
No.
Because they have different intentions, right? So, again, that alters the lens upon which you watch this film. And I implore you to go to Amazon Prime, find Velocipastor, and just, it's 64 minutes that you're not going to get back, but it's a hell of a ride.
I thought it was worth it. I thought it was worth it.
Not in the car that's supposed to be on fire. You're not going to be riding in that, but and you'll understand that joke about 4 minutes in. Was I actually keeping track of the timer? Yes. Yes, because the literal first 5 minutes are dumb ridiculous. Of course, I'll get into the plot of the movie, if you can call it that, when we get to that part of the scoring system. But first, we're going to go ahead and get into star number 1, which is production. And of course, we go with art design, makeup, and props, and cinematography.
Okay, so I'm going to start with art direction.
Okay.
I loved the grindhouse style red and green boxes in the serious scenes,
like
like in the
like
church.
in the church. So there's a part in the church, which it's really interesting how they edited this. That's what she's kind of getting into. There's a conversation taking place in the pews. One priest is trying to comfort another. I'll get into why here in a moment. But you see the two talking in the middle, and then there's a separate screen here of their faces talking to the fourth wall, essentially. It's them duplicating the lines because you can see them saying it in the middle, but they're also saying it to you separately. But it's weird. And
it's very grindhousey, like
it is very grindhousey.
Late 70s, like
it's got this, you know how they got like these weird pops inter scenes in some of these older 70s grindhouse kind of movies, and like the Shaft kind of thing where it's like da, 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 and bam, da, 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 and bam. It's like that kind of thing, but it's not to convey action. Is to, like, I guess, establish drama because it's supposed to be like a serious conversation. Something very traumatic has just happened. I know you're not supposed to laugh at trauma, but when I get the plot, like, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, that gives credence to the art direction, the color choices. Even throughout the scene, there's this. I don't.
Okay,
you can tell where they tried. You can tell where they tried. And and I'll say it like this. I think when it comes to particularly the cinematography and art direction, as far as like camera angles and lighting, I think they did exactly what they set out to do. Yes. They accomplished their goal. And if you're judging it based on how well they executed what they intended, they did. The makeup was clean, where intended.
I have to say it was a Tyrannosaur costume for a Velocipastor subject.
Listen, okay. So,
but I was willing to overlook that for execution of the kill scenes.
So Velocipastor is a great name, right? Do they use a velociraptor? No. Is the guy a pastor? No. Does the name technically fit the movie? Does a pastor turn into a velociraptor? No. Does a man of God turn into a dinosaur? Yes. So, do we get nitpicky on a movie like this? Like, for example, Lavalantula involves lava and tarantulas.
It is what it says on the tin. Like,
Lamageddon does have a doomsday llama. So do we judge this by title? I mean, even Mousetrap was a mouse that traps people in a building.
Mm-hmm.
So do we hold Velocipastor accountable for not being a velociraptor nor being a pastor? Because
I say we don't hold it against them.
For those who don't realize it, pastors are more Baptist versus priests who are more Catholic. And in the movie, he's a Catholic priest.
So, dare I say a star for cinematography, for art direction, the graphics or the placeholders for the graphics
Oh, is there a better place to add that?
was artfully done.
There isn't. There isn't a better place to put it, so we'll just talk about it here. So listen,
They had
there's
just like in the early 80s
there's an
bad
opening.
movies.
Now, here's the great part. There's an interview with the two main actors, and they explain this away. So I'll tell you what happens.
New media comedy. Check them out on YouTube.
And so here's what happened. The script had a placeholder where visual effects were supposed to take place, right? And as they sent it to people to read, they cracked up laughing at the idea of this just saying visual effects, car on fire. And they're like, oh, well, if people think that's funny, we'll just do that if people are going to find it funny. And I say, like I said, if you make it past the 5-minute mark of this movie, just go ahead and fasten your seatbelt and ride the rest of this thing out. If you can survive the first 5 minutes, you're good because you already know what you're in for, and it doesn't change from that course. You're going to you know where you're going. You get to the destination you intend to, and you're going to get off the ride, and you're going to feel something. I don't know what exactly, but you're going to feel something. I felt a lot. I forced my wife to watch it.
I felt joy.
Personally.
I felt sheer joy out of that movie. It
was such a good ride.
Especially since I grew up on martial arts movies and Grindhouse and all of that. Like all of my knowledge growing up was basically bastardized and made fun of in this movie. And it was very intelligent.
That's a word I didn't think you were going to use to describe this movie. I'll say, for a movie,
the references it was making were profound. Like, I can almost name the movies that they're referencing. Right?
But if you've gone this far in this review, you've not yet watched this movie. Okay, pause here. Open a new tab. Go to Prime. It might even be on YouTube. I'm sure it's somewhere else. It's on
Tubi. Yeah, it's also on YouTube. Yeah.
Find it, watch it, come back to this and ride this out with us. If you have seen Velocipastor, write your thoughts of it in the comments so that we know how you felt about it, so we know we're not alone. So are we giving it okay, I was going to talk about this. So there's a car explosion, right? And someone, two people pass away in this movie, or in this part of the movie. And instead of showing the car being on fire from the explosion, it literally just shows an empty parking spot and the words VFX car on fire, which is hilarious because they left
with the dramatic music, the overacting from the.
We're going to talk about his acting here in a minute. The acting of Gregory Cohen, we're going to talk about that here when that part comes. Oh boy, but okay. Star time, production. Dare we give it a star?
For the sake of VFX car on fire and the Grindhouse references with the green and red blocks, with the multi point of view dialogue, I'm going to give it a half a star. Because I know what they're getting at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
So I think we give our yay nays And then if there's 2 yays, it's a star. If it's 2 nays, it's no star. If it's off balance, I wanted to show you up front. Taking out consideration outside of that first 5 minutes, there is comedy. There is the comedic use of visual effects, like with Car on Fire, like when they're placeholder telling you where they are in China. There's there is a ridiculous fight scene in the end, which I think was filmed really, really well for what it was.
For what it was.
There's a lot. It's so ridiculous. But to know that they did this intentionally and this was their goal, I feel like it's wrong to take that away from them. So I'm going to give it a star. And if you liked it enough to give it a star, that's a star.
I'm going to give it a star. Yeah.
That's 1 star.
That's production. 1 star for production.
Oh, this is going to get ridiculous already. Okay. So the second
writing.
The second category is writing. So this includes dialogue, plot, and pacing. So allow me to go ahead and give you guys the plot now. I will try to do this most succinct way without cracking up laughing. Because sometimes you just say things and it's so ridiculous. At some point in time, there is a magical, mystical dragon's tooth. Why it's a dragon tooth, I don't know. It's supposed to be for the dragon master. It's a tooth thing, right? Like a dinosaur tooth. This priest is, he's at the church. He does a sermon. He leaves the sermon. He waves to his mom and dad who are waiting for him outside by the car. And then the car suddenly explodes for no reason. And that's when you get your VFX car on fire scene. He's so distraught. He goes in and he's talking to the head priest guy. And the head priest guy is like, maybe you should just go find yourself and go look for a place where you don't think that you'll find God. And if you still find him,
go travel.
He's like, go travel. And this is one of those profound parts that she was talking about. He says, go out and find a place where you don't think you'll find God. And if you still find him there, then that tells you that God is within you and always with you. And that is profound as fuck. Carrying on with the plot. So,
now the father, the older priest with the mustache and the beard and the gray hair, his backstory.
We gotta get it. Hold on, let me get the base story out, and then we'll get it.
Okay, backstory will happen.
There's a whole spot. Oh boy. Oh god.
I love the backstories.
So the guy has to travel. He decides to travel to China while he's out in the woods
with the birch trees.
While he's obviously in China, nowhere close to China. An Asian woman
Pennsylvania.
An Asian woman is running. She has the little tooth thing, and she hands it to him. It's like, they want this. You have to keep it from them. You have to destroy it or whatever. And he's like, the fuck? And then he cuts himself, right? And then the thing bonds with his blood. So the rock tooth dragon thing gets into his blood. Now he turns into a dinosaur. Now he turns into a Tyrannosaurus. He is out and running about, and he encounters a prostitute. Prostitute has a pimp named Frankie Mermaid. That's where the name comes from.
Whose character cracked me up.
Oh, Frankie Mermaid. I don't know. He's a pimp character, but not like a serious pimp character.
Not a serious, just making fun of pimp characters.
No one is serious in this entire movie. Like, if you watch wrestling, because everything comes back to wrestling, and you think The Godfather is like an example of what a pimp character, no. If you think he was a caricature, this is a caricature of a pimp. This is a caricature of a pimp. So in the end, he ends up encountering the prostitute again at night in the woods. She's being attacked and robbed.
Stateside.
He's back home, and he sees the prostitute. He's as the dinosaur. He kills the guy who's trying to assault the woman, saves his life. She's like, "Hey, we can save the world by killing only the bad people." He's a little hesitant. He later agrees, and next thing you know, he kills Frankie Mermaid. He kills a bunch of like bad guys, but Frankie Mermaid was also in line with some drug dealers who were part of the church. There were some drug dealing ninja priests, and Frankie Mermaid was in bed with them, and so now the Velocipastor has to attack these drug dealing ninja priests.
I wish he was kidding.
I'm so glad I wasn't.
That is the plot. That sums up the plot. I thought the pacing.
I never thought in my life I would ever say drug dealing ninja priests.
Drug dealing. And when we say drugs, we mean like cocaine.
Yeah, like cocaine, like drug dealing ninja priests. Street drugs. Now, their plot. Why would there be drug dealing ninja priests? Allow me to explain. They feel like if you put the drugs on the street, right, get everybody hooked. Then you take the drugs away. Now everyone's desperate. And when everyone's down and desperate, where are they going to turn? To the church. And that you create the problem that you will eventually show up and save them from. If that's not a genius villain plot, I don't know what to tell you.
The dialogue cracked me up.
It's funny as hell.
When he's in China,
Obviously China.
There is a young woman who is stabbed through the chest with an arrow. And so she's on the ground bleeding to death. And he, Doug.
The priest's name is Doug.
The priest runs up and says, "Are you okay?"
Like, here's how it is. Like, first of all, he's in China, right? And we know he's in China because there's a big graphic that says China.
Oh, yeah.
Then after the graphic that says China, he's like, China. Then he's sitting here. He hears the woman running because she's gotten shot in the back with the arrow. So the arrow's coming through her chest. She falls in front of him. There's like a little branch right here in front of him. He goes like this. Are you okay? Like, she's clearly bleeding out from this arrow wound, like Sako said. And it's like this whole exchange is ridiculous on a level that borderlines asinine. And it's intended to be ridiculous, borderlining asinine.
The pacing was rushed.
It was.
Because it's only about an hour, right? Just a little over an hour. But I'm glad they didn't space it out. I'm glad they didn't push the length to be an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, this could not have been an 88-minute movie. This could not have been. And honestly, any shorter than an hour would have been a disservice. You'd have taken out something funny, taken out plot points for as best of plot points as you can get. Because, of course, you have this element where he meets Carol, who's the prostitute, and there's some sexual tension there, but he's a priest, so he can't go there, until he does, and then he's attacked by ninjas. Because it happens. He and she are suddenly attacked by ninjas.
While they're snuggled in bed, post-coitus. Yeah. American ninjas.
Yes.
And somehow they know how to fight. Not the
I mean,
ninjas. I mean, you expect the ninjas to know how to fight.
that's a prerequisite for being a ninja, I would assume.
But the priest and the quote unquote hooker uh, both know how to fight and hold their own.
They do.
Alyssa, the woman who plays Carol, has some stellar poses that she does, like after the combat. That makes me think she should be in a superhero movie. Just brilliantly.
So the dialogue is hilarious because it's a comedy. It's horror satire in
It's
the way
satire,
that Scream
yeah.
isn't.
Is it?
Because Scream is horror satire where it looks into introspectively the elements of classic horror movies, puts it all into one movie, and kind of explores it from there. This ain't that. This is taking a horror comedy in the vein of Scary Movie, and like if you have Scream as satire and Scary Movie as a parody, and you had those two movies make a movie baby, whatever you would call that is what Velocipastor is. I don't know how else. It's a whole new level of something. But whatever it is, the execution was done as intended. You know, because they were happy with the way the movie turned out. There's a lot of work that went into it. The interview that we referenced earlier, the two actors really get into, because they're really hands-on with their characters, and I don't know what else to say about this movie in the assumption that you haven't seen it.
It does follow the hero's journey to an extent.
Yeah.
So structure was taken into account. I'm sure there were scenes that were taken out for... If there's a director's cut at any point, I'm dying to see it.
I would pay so much money to see that. That's why so in short, I'll just act like you've seen it. They say things in such a dramatic tone that...
Well, hold on. So Gregory Cohen, the guy who played Doug, who was the Velocipastor, he was told by Brandon Steer, the director, to basically pretend that he was a Shakespearean actor that overacts everything. That takes it take it super seriously, go for the Oscar, just act the hell out of it. And he did.
Oh boy, did he. And the fact that he's the only one that's acting to that level makes it stand out even more. He executes it very well. If the movie was any more serious, his performance would fit. But it also stands out because you have characters like Frankie fucking Mermaid. You have characters like Father Stewart.
Father Stewart.
That was his name. Father Stewart, who has his own backstory. Good God. I want to talk about that so bad.
We will get into that when we get into theme, I think.
Yes, it's that work.
But it's worth mentioning Father Stewart.
There's a section of the movie where he does his own backstory I'll get into. Well, yeah, we'll wait to that because there's not a whole lot of backstory for the primary plot. I mean, it's the plot line. It's pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot of background. There's a one little note backstory kind of thing that gets into some other stuff later. But I feel like we're talking in circles at this point. I know that I am.
Okay.
And that's only because
writing.
The dialogue is funny. It is performed in a way to make the comedic lines stand out even more. I don't know anything about what was that line that they used in the interview. They were asked what their favorite line of the movie was, and I wish I could remember what it was.
I can't remember either.
It ended with the priest going, "I don't know anything about dinosaurs," and it was their way of saying, like, "Well, we're going."
Oh, she didn't. Alyssa said she didn't know anything about God.
Oh, right.
And Greg said that he didn't know anything about dinosaurs, and the project just took off.
Well, that was a line actually used in the movie. So it's the dialogue is funny. It's a comedy. It's intended to be funny. It's executed well. I laughed my ass off the entire time.
Can I mention the final fight?
Yes.
So in a Li Peng Lopan sort of fashion, we take or Enter the Dragon, we take a whole pack of American, except for one Korean, ninjas, and all of these, ninja drug dealing priests, and they are fighting the Tyrannosaur costume. And it's the goriest scene in the movie. There is one point, I have to give them credit. They actually got Cantonese speakers to play the Chinese characters.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, they weren't just spitting out gibberish. They were speaking Cantonese. And there is a scene where Doug is half dinosaur, half human. He tears off the headmaster's head and screams for like 5 minutes, covered in blood, holding up this mannequin head that has a mustache on it. Clearly.
Obviously a mannequin head. Like, not like they tried to hide it. Like, they wanted to look ridiculous. And they succeeded.
I want to rewatch the movie right now. No, so the laughing scenes with the brother who didn't know how to laugh,
mm-hmm.
and the headmaster who is laughing maniacally for 10 minutes straight,
and the other guy is just awkwardly trying his best.
Ha ho ha ho ha ho ha.
Like, he's trying, failing. Like, one of those bless your heart kind of fails. Like, if that was happening in Alabama, somebody would be like, "Oh, bless his heart."
It's just the whole villain side.
It's campy. It's all campy. But, like, as campy, like, it's intentionally campy. If you walk in knowing that it's supposed to be campy, I mean, build yourself a fire, catch yourself a fish. Like, you're at camp. Like, this is the thing.
There is a band called Victorious, that makes power metal songs about dinosaurs fighting the holy war in space. And I think Victorious should have been the soundtrack to this movie, at least during the credits.
Can you imagine Velocipastor in space?
Oh, please.
Like for Velocipastor 3, I want Velocipastor in space.
Velocipastor.
I will email, I will tweet somebody today. Listen, and no, I didn't mispronounce, I didn't missay 3. Velocipastor 2 is written. And according to their Twitter account, in like October of last year, of 23, they rapped. It's filmed.
Like they recorded it.
Like it's filmed. It's written.
They just want to release it.
It hasn't released yet. I haven't found it. Trust me, I went on a tear looking for it last night. I'm told
it's gorier. There's like Soviet spies, and
they're in Italy. They're in Italy.
Also, they're in Italy. And so they're going to lean into the camp, which I'm totally here for. I support it. Okay, so writing, we give it a star.
I have to.
Because it was intentionally humorous.
It's so fucking funny. Like if you laughed at Schindler's List, what's wrong with you? Like that's not how you have other issues.
You have other issues if you're.
You have so many. You need to go see counselor. Don't watch the movie. Go see your counselor. Go pray to somebody. Priest, pastor, dinosaur, flying spaghetti monster, anybody. You need help. But
okay, so let's talk about characterization. Okay. So let's start with the casting. I thought the casting was excellent because everyone played their part like just the way it was intended.
It seemed as if the only 2 actors were the leads. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you've seen Velocipastor, I somehow feel like this sentence would make sense to you. This is where we are. Hi, Jenny. I lost my track. Okay, so like they only hired the lead male and the lead female, and the backstory. It's like they were putting the project through for funding. One of the guys who worked there was like, "Hey, I know those dudes. This sounds ridiculous. Let's go be a part of it." And they're like, "Hey, I'll do whatever you need me to do." And they're like, "Do you want to star in it?" Yeah. So they did. And then the lead was a friend of the directors. The lead female was a friend of the directors. So they're in. And they played their roles really, really, really well. And like you said, Sako.
And half of it was improv.
I mean, when you watch the movie, you'll be surprised the whole thing's not improv.
Yeah.
But because it's like, how do you write this? How do you write about a priest that has watched his parents get murdered and then goes on a spiritual journey and then finds a magical dinosaur tooth that turns him into a transforming dinosaur on a new mission to take down a group of American drug dealing ninja priests? Wow, that was a sentence. So I think the people who they had in place played their roles really well. And again, it's one of those things where if you hired in anybody else, if you try to bring in a known actor, this would have been their last movie. You couldn't imagine Leonardo DiCaprio playing Doug.
Yes,
It would have been.
please.
It would have been. It wouldn't work. You kind of have to have it's in the vein of like a college student film, and it needs that vibe. It needs to feel that raw, in a sense, like raw filmmaking. It's what it needs to feel like in order to pull off this level of camp. And I think they did that very well. The story, as far as consistency and the evolution, Doug goes on a typical arc.
He's
Sako
on a
mentioned this
journey.
already. She already mentioned it. Like he goes on the proper arc. He has
And
his life.
as does the female counterpart.
She does. Like, so for Doug, he is a priest. He is happy. He feels like this is the way he can change the world. Something tragic happens to him. He is going into a dark place. Something happens to him, and it brings him out of that dark place, but not in the way that he would intend. It's kind of, he's trying to find himself and redefine himself in a sense. And then this female character comes into his life and helps guide him into essentially his final form, where he realizes that this thing that happened to him is not a curse, it's a blessing. All church puns intended. And he can do so much more good works in his new form versus as a priest in one church. And that's a typical arc in any movie, horror, thriller, call it, like, change some of the surroundings, and that's a typical lead character arc. It is. I mean, hell, Tony Stark goes through a similar arc through the course of the Marvel movies. I mean, think about Iron Man 1. Think about Iron Man, right? Same thing. Tony Stark has his life. He goes into a situation. Something happens to him. He feels like this is a downfall, but then it becomes his savior in a sense, and he realizes that because of the thing that happened to him, he's actually able to do more good in his new form with the help of his female counterpart, Potts, and then he becomes this hero. It's, oh my God, did I just compare Velocipastor to Iron Man? Oh dear God, save us all.
POV was predominantly Doug. It does flick over to Father Stewart for
like a hot second.
For no reason. I mean, Carol is a supporting character.
She is. She's like his catalyst. She's Doug's transformation catalyst. But so we're focusing on Doug. And again, like when you mentioned the fight scene being the goriest, I almost have to dispute, because that Vietnam flashback where Father
Again, the backstory is part of the theme, but if you feel you must discuss it, then
I don't. I'll save it because all I'm saying is I think that scene is bloodier proportionately. But no, like, again, so in this category, because the arc that Doug goes through, the point of view of the movie is through Doug's eyes, and the arc that he ultimately goes through, and the performance by that character, like, Doug sells it. You get anybody else to perform Doug's role any other way, and you've lost the movie. It's almost too campy at that point. You might as well have had a group of 10-year-olds make it. I have to give this movie a star for it.
I give it a star.
I mean, if you have
The
anything to add to this
the
category, please.
characters were half written, half acted, like improv. And they really came into their own, and they understood the assignment.
They did. They absolutely
and I thought Frankie Mermaid was excellently cast. I was a little puzzled. I was a little puzzled when we are introduced to Carol, and she walks up to him and basically says hi, and he's like, "How dare you tell me what to do?" etc., etc. And
that exchange is a little it's
a little wonky.
It's a little wonky. But
the stuff that comes out of his mouth,
I wish there was more Frankie. I'd watch an entire Frankie Mermaid movie. Give me 60 minutes of Frankie Mermaid, just like trying to keep control of people on the streets. And I don't know, he's tied in with drug dealers, so give me a plot where he loses the shipment or doesn't get paid, and he has to like go into hiding from the drug dealing ninja priests all day. Like a prequel to Velocipastor that ends with him acquiring Carol. There you go. So yeah, so if Brendan Steer is watching this, holla at your kid, holla at your crew. Like we're gonna help you write Velocipastor 3, the story of Frankie Mermaid.
In space.
In space. Everything's in fucking space.
Okay, so star for characterization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Drug dealing ninja priests.
So
that should sell the movie by it. Should have been just called Drug Dealing Ninja Priests.
But that would have taken away from the dinosaur.
I'd still watch it.
I'd definitely watch it, but I would have been surprised at the dinosaur.
That's fair. So, but I watched Velocipastor and I was surprised at the drug dealing ninja priests. Apples, oranges. All the time.
Apples and oranges. Okay, theme.
All right, so you got this. You want to do it? You want to just go ahead? We've alluded to this this Vietnam War backstory. Do you want to tell it?
So Father Stewart, long before he's a priest, he is a shaggy-haired soldier, which of course is against code. But anyway, he is making friends with his fellow soldiers when they are sniped from a distance, and just like he is annihilated in front of him, his friend, and there is a quick memorial, there's a memory of him laughing and smiling and stuff while we look over his mangled corpse. And the friend, while he was alive, asked if Stewart had a girl back home, and he's like, yeah, her name's Adelaide or Adeline.
Ew.
And he shows off a picture and says, hey, she's hot. Nicely done. And for some reason, the woman of his dreams is in Vietnam, running towards him. Stewart, Adeline, Stewart, Adeline, Stewart, Adeline. She steps on a mine and blows up 10 feet from him. And he is just showered in organs.
and he holds that face. Like the camera's right here, and he holds this look straight. Like he plays it straight, and he holds it for God knows how long.
While they're having a conversation around him about what happened.
That, and of course, it's the common sense conversation that you see in a comedy. It's like, what was she doing in the woods anyway? How did she? And it's like the question that you're asking, the characters are asking on your behalf.
Yeah.
And like, that description doesn't even do it justice, right? Because you have excellent lines by the other officer, the buddy he was bonding with. It's like, yeah, I'm going to make it out of this unscathed and completely unhurt and unharmed, and nothing can possibly go wrong and hurt me. And that's how you know he's going to die. Then he dies. So again, dialogue was one of those, he's obviously going to die because he's talking about living too much. And what was she doing there? Like, they had to write that in there just to have, like, just to
she's in the flower dress with the
just
gardening
to put the blood
hat.
and guts in his face. Oh yeah, like she came out of a garden in New Jersey or some shit. I don't know. Like, why was she there in the woods? Nobody can know. Even he's surprised when he sees her. And then she dies, and it's the loss of his love that made him to be a priest. This is all happening during an exorcism when they're trying to draw out the demon that's inside Doug, which is just the dinosaur thing. Doug eventually attacks and kills everybody. Not Father Stewart. We see him later on. It's so weird. It's so strange.
No, well,
yeah, because he's alive and talks to the headmaster of the drug dealing ninja priests.
Yes, the ninja priests rescue Father Stewart.
And then the exorcist
and put an eye patch on him.
He's just laughing as all this shit happens in front of him. It's weird. But if you haven't guessed yet, this whole fucking movie is weird. On purpose.
So the tone, the mood was made in, like you said, it was made in the first 5 minutes.
It holds steady. It holds straight.
And holds steady. Mm-hmm. I dare say it ramps up as the movie goes on. But
I mean, as you would expect action to intensify as you reach the climax of the movie, but ultimately it doesn't. When you see this movie as it starts off, you get 2 bits of information in that first 5 minutes. One is this movie is going to be a comedy and not going to take itself too seriously. You get that. You also see that as far as the actual story is concerned, we're playing the story straight in a goofy, comedic, can't be taken serious way. So you have to look at it in 2 different ways here. Especially with the acting of Gregory Cohen, playing it so dramatic and then a level higher. And then the story goes through a typical character arc. He goes through a typical character arc. So things are going to amp up, like you said. With that in mind, the mood is somber when it needs to be. Like I said, that one...
And they go in the green and red again with the cubes and the...
Oh, the sex scene. Oh, the sex scene. So for what it's worth, like, it's not graphic. Like, there's no tits, ass, or nothing like that. There's her and her underwear is the best you're gonna get. So if you're, I wouldn't have my 10-year-old watch it, but my 13-year-old would probably be fine. But again, kind of like we did with the color scheme in that priest conversation, which that line, that whole conversation that Father Stewart has with Doug, where it's like how to find God. I'm like, that is a deep line. And that helps you keep the serious tone. There's like the serious undertone to the comedy. And that story is fine. And the tone is fine. And it's consistent. Like it stays, like this is where you stay. This is the pocket that you stay.
It found its lane and
stayed in its lane, which people apparently don't do in Sam's Club, but that's a whole different
rant. Message. God is within you.
Yeah. It's Doug found himself in a place where you wouldn't expect to find God and found holy work. He was transformed against his will into a dinosaur, but still found a way to utilize this to ultimately do God's work. That's what he's doing. He's stopping bad guys from hurting people with their drugs because they're drug dealing ninja priests. And I can't help but say that with every opportunity I get. He finds a way to do God's work as a mystical transforming dinosaur. And even though he's not a priest anymore, he finds love. And
the priest stuff goes out the window with the premise of pussy.
I mean, yeah. I don't blame him. I'm with you, Doug. I'm with you. But even when he obviously leaves the priesthood, and even with Carol, she was someone who would be otherwise dismissed on the streets. And she, in her own self, finds value in herself and leaves the sleaze work of being a sex worker for Frankie Mermaid. So even she finds herself in the course of all this work, because despite the scene where she dies, she lives. She's fine. Trust. She's fine. In the same way they do VFX Car on Fire, the same way they do China, there's a part where she is clearly like cut. I love this part because she's cut with this sword, not deep enough to where it cuts the fabric of her outfit, but deep enough to kill her. She's spitting up blood. She dies there on the battlefield. But then she goes to the
fellow
hospital.
Ninjas, the assailants are standing there staring at them.
As he mourns her, her death is his motivation to vanquish the evil. That's what gets him to transform back into the dinosaur in the end. And then she's fine. As it says, she's fine.
She is in the hospital. Not in the hospital. She's in a doctor's office with the...
She's at the dentist, it looks like.
She looks like she's at the gynecologist. And
she's fine.
But she's fine. And there is text about Yay Big that just says she's fine.
Like right there. She's fine.
And end of movie. So
they do a little...
There's a little denouement, like...
So what do we do now? I don't know. He's still so dramatic. It's so great. Baby. So that's the backstory. I mean, there's not a lot of backstory to the actual Velocipastor story. We get some backstory for Father Stewart. The message is kind of follow your heart and you can do good your own way. Maybe not the way you intended, but you'll still get there. Maybe you travel a different path than the road you thought you travel, but you'll still end up at your destination. Because that's ultimately what happens. He wants to do good, which is why he became a priest in the first place. And that didn't work out for him, but he still found a way to do good and bring peace and love and joy.
I suppose. So, star for the theme?
Huh?
Star for the theme?
I mean, how do you say no to that? Find your own path, even if it's not the path that you originally laid before you. The fact that you can even get that message legitimately, like, I'm not even blowing smoke up my own ass. Like, that's a legit message that if you take a moment, if you watch the movie, pause for like 30 seconds and reflect on it seriously for a moment after you get done laughing, you can draw that conclusion from the story, the actual story laid out in front of you. It's a consistent message. It's a genuine theme. Like, it's the arc that Doug is on.
So that's 4 stars.
It's an excellent bad movie. We scored this movie better than Haunt.
Bad. Yeah.
We scored this better than Haunt. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Haunt's a great movie. Go ahead and watch it. Like, it's a fun time. If it's Halloween and you're doing Halloween-y stuff, even if it's not October 31st, Haunt's a good movie. Mousetrap, okay. Mousetrap is the kind of bad movie that you're disappointed when it's over. I was. I didn't have a lot of expectations going into Mousetrap, and I was still very disappointed. When I finished watching Velocipastor, I was too busy laughing to be disappointed. And I think when we're talking about bad movies, because we've talked about Mousetrap as a bad movie, we talked about Velocipastor as a bad movie, but this is funny, and there's just a difference. There's a genuine difference. You know, if you're watching this and you've had a chance to see Mousetrap and or Velocipastor, give us your thoughts. The differences in bad movie versus bad movie, because I feel like it's a very interesting category of horror to go into. Movies that are made poorly versus movies that are made bad, and how we describe bad movies. Maybe that's an episode for Sako on the Moon.
Hey, maybe so.
Season 4 won't be too long.
Season 4 is just around the corner. Yeah.
So maybe you need to go ahead and like and subscribe to this video and then subscribe to this channel so that when the Sako on the Moon Season 4 episode of bad movies, bad horror, like intentionally bad horror, whenever we do that episode, you'll be notified. You know, do the things.
Push the buttons.
Push buttons, do things, wear hats, swim in bitches. Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. You got anything else?
No. That Vampire Hunter should be Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter. We will take that into consideration. Absolutely.
I knew they did.
Whenever we need a palate cleanser.
I know we did Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Did they make a movie for that?
That happened, but Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter was in the 80s.
Ooh, interesting. We got some movie hunting to do.
We might have to pay for it. Oh, 2001. Excuse me. Yeah, we'll definitely think about that.
We'll look into that one.
So Mondays at 3:00, you can catch us doing movie reviews on horror movies of varying types. And on Fridays, we do our podcast regarding writing craft and self-publishing and interviewing people, stuff like that.
We got some pretty dope interviews that we've just recently done. Last Friday's interview with S.A. Bradley was amazing.
You should go back and watch it.
Before that,
he's a wealth of knowledge.
With Carl R. Moore with his new book, Red December. Absolutely go see. In fact, just go back and watch all the episodes. Go see all of them. We've done like, 5 interviews?
More than that.
Was it more than that? Let's see.
Because we did a couple in the first season too.
Oh, right. Oh, so we're like 7 or 8 interviews. Yeah, just go back season 1. Go back and watch all of them. Because these are amazing people you're going to want to talk to. There's some great books that you're going to want to buy. The holiday season is coming up. So you can pick up anything from Screaming for Pleasure by S.A. Bradley. You can pick up Red December. Days of Darkness by Steven Zimmer. You can pick up the Bog Hag anthology that somebody may be in.
Sacred Fire. So, yeah.
Or the Copperweed collection. You can always pick up the Copperweed collection.
Yes.
Cheap plugs.
Cheap plugs. All right. We will catch you guys next week. Here we go.